I'm Rosie Hardy. This is Rosie Hardy Gardening. I've done a winter interest border where I've done the layout of plant material, and I wanted to do a little bit about the actual plants that I used. So this is the second part. This is all about plants that want to go in the much more shady area, maybe a slightly moister conditions. So we're going to start off with something which, since I did the previous video, we've had a lot of hard frost, and you will see that the Amsonia has now defoliated, but you're still left with these beautiful stems. These stems have got the most amazing purple coloration, and they're just standing up like this. Just leave them there. The seed heads are there as well. It's quite unusual, this one, whereby the seed heads are always these twin pairs of pods. Very, very good thing. So this gives you a bit of height. When it gets a little bit of snow perhaps on it, or it gets a little bit later in the winter, all of this will die back down again, but at the moment it is still giving you interest at the back of the border. So that is Amsonia illustris. So really, really good thing, brilliant for shady spots, not eaten by deer or pests and that sort of thing, so very useful. And in the spring, lovely little starry blue flowers on that, quite a pale blue on Amsonia illustris. Just going to drop that onto the ground. And then we have got a grass. So we had grasses in the sunnier border. This one is Cesaria autumnalis, and as you can see, it's still putting on new growth here, new bits of flower and what have you. You've got the older heads here. It does not detract, so these are going to stay there looking architectural. You get the green foliage here at the base. It's always a pale green colour on this particular variety. It's a clump former, really, really good for the autumn interest into the winter interest. Lovely little grass, and this one I really rate for putting in a shady area, Cesaria. So it's going to get to around about 18 inches, 45 centimetres at the base. Foliage only going up to around about 15 to 20 centimetres, about 8-10 inches. And then the flower spikes above here. So you could put it front or back. I quite like to put it nearer the front. Very good, very architectural, really useful for the winter interest border. Now, there are masses of hellebores which are usable, and I think hellebores are wonderful plants for the winter interest border. You can go from things like this, which is ViV Victoria, which starts flowering very, very early, and then it flush flowers right the way through. It has good dense green foliage here at the base. It is a compact plant. Flowers probably up to around about 18 inches, 45 centimetres. Foliage not much more than a foot around, but really good dark green foliage on this particular variety. And then a cousin of this one is ViV Valeria, and this one I really rate as well. Look at this, it's in full flower at the moment. Wonderful flowers. They start off like this with this lovely cream here. The reverses are all lovely bronzes and purples. Then it fades to something like this, and as it goes over, it keeps its majesty of that flower looking really, really good. It's got dark green, beautiful big leaves which have got these purple centers in them as well. The foliage goes out and goes flat, so this is going to make at least 18 inches, if not 2 foot spread with its foliage, but the foliage is only going to be a maximum of 10 inches, maybe a foot high, so something around about 50 to 60 centimetres wide, but only with the foliage somewhere around about 20 to 30 centimetres, and then the flowers come up over the top. They seem to erupt out of the centre and just look fantastic. So we're in the middle of November and this is flowering now, so it's going to flower right the way through November, December into January, and then it starts to fade. So it's a really good winter interest variety. I think it's a stunning plant. So that is ViV Valeria. and it's really, really good. Then you can't go far wrong than using epimediums in a shade area and for winter interest, especially the varieties which keep their foliage. So the first one here is an orange flowered one. This is warleyense Orangekonigin. This has big leaves, makes a reasonable sized plant, beautiful in the spring, lovely orange flowers, but you need to remember with these varieties, cut the foliage off at around about the beginning of February, and then you'll see the flowers, and they look absolutely brilliant. These are great ground cover plants for shady areas, giving you winter and early spring interest. Good old-fashioned variety is this particular one here. This is Epimedium Sulphureum, and this, and you can see beautiful foliage at this time. This is going to go a little bit browner as we get into the really hard winter, but that doesn't matter. It's still giving you interest and it's covering the ground. It looks good. And then again, once you get to about February time, cut off the old foliage, allow the new foliage and the new flowers to come through. Really, really good plants. So they will tolerate quite deep shade. They'll take it a little bit moister or dry, really doesn't matter from their point of view. So they are excellent. Another one which is really good, and this one is TELLIMA. TELLIMA again is not going to flower until the spring, but this is TELLIMA Rubra Group, and you can see it's got lovely purple bronze foliage with lovely dark purple veins there in the leaves. These just make amazing clumps. Very, very good plants. They'll go in shade. They love shade. They're a woodland plant, so that makes them really useful. Organic matter, leaf matter for where they're planted, that'll be fine. Once established, they'll tolerate it a little bit drier, but they're quite happy in moisture as well. So the foliage is going to make wonderful mounds, somewhere around about the 18 inches across, 45 centimetres by about a foot high, 30 centimetres, that's your foliage. And then in the spring, these amazing spires of beautiful green with a hint of red on them, of tubular flowers and a lovely cluster with the most amazing perfume. So these are brilliant shade plants. They are divisible, absolutely no problem whatsoever. So we have these shade plants which like it a little bit moister. They're really, really good for winter interest. Now this is Ajuga Catlin's giant, and this is showing you its beautiful foliage. This foliage just keeps on going. This is a spreader. It will root down wherever these pieces go, and it makes a lovely big clump. The leaves are large. Catlin's giant is a large Ajuga, and you get these amazing flower spikes. Now usually it's flowering in the spring, but every now and again it'll put on a flower through the autumn into the winter months, and you can see it is this beautiful violet colour. So this is just a small flower head on here. If this was in the spring, the flower heads would be up here, just over a foot high, and there would be lots of them. I love this plant. You've got this purple foliage which in the spring really glistens. It's glossy, it just shows off. It's wonderful as a ground cover plant. It doesn't root too deep, so if it's starting to meander around where you don't want it to, just yank it out, cut it off, move it around. That's absolutely fine. But that is your Ajuga. It does prefer a slightly moister position. We then have a Saxifraga for the shade. This one is Saxifraga umbrosa. This one, the rosettes are beautiful green. At this time of the year, you're starting to get red tints to the rosettes. You get an autumnal feel to the plant. In the spring, this will go bright green, and then it will have the most amazing frothy heads of beautiful soft pink and cream flower spikes which get to here. This is a very old plant. It's sometimes underrated, but it's a brilliant plant for winter interest into spring. Just fantastic, evergreen. So this will just make a carpeting mat, and if you need to split it up, you can take each individual rosette off and start a new plant going. Really good little plants. Saxifraga umbrosa, also known as London Pride, but there is a heuchera called Heuchera sanguinea, which is also known as London Pride. So that is why I tend to use the technical names, the botanical naming, rather than the common names, because common names can mean a lot of different things in different countries and even in the same country, because London Pride means different things to different people in the UK. All right, so Saxifraga umbrosa. Begonias. Begonias are very, very useful. There are lots of these. If you see winter gardens out in parks and gardens, you will see they use a lot of different foliage type begonias because their foliage stays there, goes beautiful colours in the autumn, really good new foliage in the spring, and then they start to flower. This one is Bressingham White, so this one has white flowers when it comes out, and you can see the foliage is going the beautiful colours. In the border this foliage would be bigger, but they're just really good winter interest foliage. You can push them back a bit if you want to. Don't let them dry out too much. They do prefer a slightly moister soil, and they do work well if you keep on dividing them up. I know people say in their gardens they look a little bit straggly and they're dying out in the centre, and that's usually because people have not split them. If you look at ones that are in big gardens, they're dividing them every 3 to 4 years, if not earlier, to keep them going, keep them generated. So that's the thing, regenerated, sorry. That's the thing that you need to be doing with those. Then the last two I've got for the shadier spot are these ones, and we have got Veronica gentianoides Tissington White. This is going to flower beautifully April-May time, but during the winter it has foliage that sits down and looks really good. The one thing you will notice with a lot of the plant material I've got, we've got completely contrasting leaves, and that's what makes the interest. So you've got grasses, you've got epimediums, you've got Veronica, Brunnera, Ajuga. All the leaf patterns and the colours of the leaves make the interest. It's not necessarily the flowers, and that's what you're looking for in a winter interest border. It has to be different foliage, different heights, different shapes, different colours, and that's what you're looking at. So basically this one has lovely rosettes, beautiful green, hugging. So the foliage hugs the ground. You just have a round mat. So this is for the front of the border. It likes a moistish soil, and it likes to be in a bit of shade, and then it will work really well for you. If you put this in full sun, it will grow and it will flower, but it'll flower and it'll be over in an instant. If you put it in a shadier spot, the flowers last much, much longer, and if it's in a moister spot, it also grows much better. So that's Veronica gentianoides. Tissington White does really well. Last one I have is the Brunnera, and again, the Brunnera are grown for these huge, big, beautiful leaves. This is Alexanders Great. This has been bred where the foliage is actually going to get a lot larger than this. At this time of the year it's just going a little bit yellow, but in the ground it would be much greener and absolutely fine. Beautiful silver markings, lovely veination here, really cracking, and then in the spring wonderful blue forget-me-not flowers as well. So this is really great. You can hear it's got rough leaves, doesn't get eaten by the slugs and snails in the same way that say hostas do. So these are really, really good alternatives. Put them into a shady spot, they are fantastic. So that is the finished lot of all the plants that I used in the winter interest laying out, showing you, just giving you a little bit more insight as to the actual individual plants and how they grow. Thank you very much for watching.